Hey guys, well, I tell you, it's a little bit awkward to come out with this video after all the talk about avoiding Football Manager addiction and everything else. The reason why it's a little awkward is because I've decided to start a second project. It was probably a couple of weeks ago now that I alluded to the idea that I might want to stop the hexagon save challenge that I've been doing, largely because it was taking so much time because of all the loading screens and everything like that was going on. There is a reason why I started thinking that at that particular time, and that is because, as I mentioned a couple days ago or so, my favorite editor data file came out, which is the World Super League. And I would like to do a project or two with World Super League, and I'm not certain that I really want to wait until like the year in real time or whatever for the other save to end. At the same time, as you know, I usually try to do an afternoon video that's about like some other topic that's not necessarily game footage, which is nice, but honestly, since the game in Taiwan for us has become really kind of slow, the same thing mostly over and over again until we, get something done in the AFC Cup. Like, there's not really too much for me to say, right? So because of that, I've decided to start this. We're going to have occasional videos in the afternoon from the other save when I can do them, and we'll probably be able to create some more content based on what happens in the other save as well. So we'll put it to you really simple. We're going to combine the two elements I talked about earlier, the World Super League and then the currently partial Legends of the Beautiful Game database, and we're going to put them together and just sort of see what comes out of it. I've actually already started it, and as you can imagine, it's taken me a couple of weeks to get this figured out and get it set up the way that I want. We're going to take control of Manchester United. There was a big question as to whether I wanted to take control of them or a team like Manchester City. I knew that I wanted a team that was at the top level because I want to make sure that we can play with as many of the legendary players as we can, and that we have a team that can afford to buy legendary players, right? I decided to go with Manchester United because Manchester City doesn't quite have the same, breadth of legendary players from the past that Manchester United does, and so I thought it would probably be better to keep it here. It's not going to be simple, right? So you're looking right here at the competition screen. We'll go over these sort of in some sort of detail, let you know what happens. The Premier League is the one that we worry about the most. And the Premier League, when we go ahead and look at the stages here, it starts off with this league table with 48 different stages. And we look at the rules. The league is divided into a bunch of different sort of quadrants, as I understand it, right? So we look at our schedule. We don't have like a 47 game schedule. Instead, we have a schedule in which we're playing, I don't know how many Premier League games there are. I haven't gone through to count them, but probably about 16 or so, 15, 16 different games. I think that we play each of these teams on the schedule once, right? We'd have to play PSG. We have to play like FC Bayern. We have to play Manchester City, Real Madrid. I mean, this is not an easy schedule at all. If you haven't seen the other video, and I probably should have mentioned this at the top, the idea behind this is that we're going to have every single team in the world basically into the same structure. It's all in England. There are no work permit issues. There's nothing else like that to worry about. The rules are all quite a bit different, and it's set up actually pretty well. So there are three different groups. Is it 3 or 4? I think it's actually 3 different groups that form. Yeah, it's 3 of 16 teams each after your initial 15 games, where teams play each other only once. And so you want to be in the top tier of your group so that you can move on to a better group, to this championship group. And there you have another 15 games against the 16 best teams as you fight it out to see if you can win the prize, which ends up being 174 million euros. There is also a mid-table group, and then there's a relegation group. Now, the relegation group means that the bottom, bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams are relegated, and then there's relegation playoffs for the next 3 teams. And so that's the way that it's set up here in the Premier League, right? And it's a pretty, complicated setup, and there's going to be a lot of matches to play, and they're going to be huge. At the same time, there's also the Champions League, which is also a thing here, and we are also in it. And the Champions League, as I understand, is set up just like the modern Champions League is. So we have group stages, and we'll play through that as the season goes on. In fact, we start that, looks like, in mid-August. If you look at the schedule, I didn't talk about this much. The schedule is set up basically so that we have 2 matches a week for the whole season, which means that we've had to build a squad that's capable of playing 2 matches a week. Now, I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about what this squad looks like. At the same time, we also have the FA Cup. I think it's the 7th round that we come in. This FA Cup consists of every single team basically in the database, all the teams in this game's world. It's a little bit over 1,100, and you're going to notice that there are a bunch of teams that don't make it in, right? But you do get some really odd ones. I was looking at the worst teams that make it in. You've got like Charlotte Independence in Charlotte, North Carolina with it's not such a small stadium. 10,000 isn't too bad. You've got Peterborough Sport, so 2,300. That's for Kev. And you've got a couple of others here and there that are kind of unusual teams that have made it in, and that you could take control of and try to push up to the top. If you want to use FC United because you don't like Manchester United, you can go grab them and try to push them up to the top from the very bottom of the structure of the league. They're in the National League West. So you have that as well, and then you also have the Super League Cup among other teams that are in the Super League. So there's all sorts of competitions you can potentially win. Now, I wanted to talk briefly about some of the rules here. So we'll go back to the Premier League and we'll take a look at the rules. The rules are different. Registration rules are different than like any other database I've seen. So not only is there like nothing to worry about in terms of work permit, which is nice, but also means that your squad could no longer look like the country that it's in. You have to be careful with that. But you also have rules that allow players who are under 21 years old to be played without registering. You can have up to 35 players registered. There are 2 nicely sized transfer windows. One a month long is the winter one, and then the other one is June, July, August is 3 months long, which isn't too bad. And there are a couple of other rules regarding loans, right? So you can have maximum of 100 players allowed on a loan in a season and stuff like that. So it doesn't go nuts. It's not like, you know what I do with loans, right? We're not going to have 400 players out on loan in this save. Anyway, a couple of financial rules, stuff like that. We're not going to worry too much about the rest of that stuff. There's also, of course, international play. So there will be the 2022 World Cup will take place from November to December, which will mean a problem because I guess we don't have any matches scheduled then, but there will be that big gap. So it'll be really interesting to see. So now the real question here is like, what's the point of this? What's the idea here? We'll get more into this, I think, in tomorrow's video, but the real idea behind this is that we're going to try to win as much as we can from the beginning, right? I want to take you on the journey through World Super League, and let's see what happens. Let's see how much we can get going, and let's see, how much we can dominate the first season, in every single competition. Let's see if we can create a team that has an extremely strong A team and B team, and if we can rotate correctly to allow us to keep up with this really, really challenging schedule, and have a little bit of fun with it as well. It's going to be fast and furious, and we're going to have a ton of games against a ton of really, really good teams. It might feel a little bit off. I think the first season, we may only do 1 season. We might do 2 seasons. I don't know. We'll sort of see what happens. We'll play that by ear. But it's going to be very, very interesting as we move forward and as I think as storylines start to develop. I would consider this to be the ultimate Football Manager experience, which is why I've been so excited to play it. It's come out a little bit later this year than before. It came out in late September, and you're seeing this mid-October or so. It's come out a little bit later than it usually does, but usually for me, this is really the signal that it's time to buy the new FM when World Super League comes out, because I'm going to be really blunt with you. When you played this, you'll start wondering why in the world you would play the base game and why you would play with base countries, because it's a lot more fun when you have freedom to do stuff and when you're competing against the best teams in the world and it's an actual challenge. But we'll see more of that as we move forward and as we play these games. So until tomorrow, I'll talk with you later. Bye.